Well, today, Washington lawmakers on both sides of the aisle overwhelmingly agreed on something: excluding themselves from the state's public disclosure laws. That means they could potentially withhold things like their daily schedules, emails, and text messages.
The measure passed the Senate this afternoon and then was quickly approved in the House. Both passed with wide margins, meaning the governor can't even veto it.
So why does this matter to you? Two on your side, investigator Whitney Ward is here to explain that.
Well, it's kind of a big deal. Voters are the ones who said they wanted these disclosure laws because it allows us, and not just the media, but all of us, to know what our state lawmakers are doing. Because the reality is, sometimes they don't want us to know. They don't necessarily want us to know who they're taking money from or who they've been talking to, what they've been saying. That is why these laws have been enacted in the first place. So I want you to walk over here with me. I just kind of want to give you some examples of how we have used these public disclosure laws over the years in order to get access to information. And we're talking about important information. So first, let's talk about wildfires. After the Carlton Complex wildfire in 2014, there were a lot of questions about who knew what and when they knew it. So one example is after I talked to DNR's then Commissioner Peter Goldmark, and he told me there was never an instance where state firefighters wouldn't put out a fire. Well, we found that wasn't exactly the case when I got my hands on this audio recording.
Yeah, we do have the 4 on board here, but let's see if you guys want to continue on with the previous mission or divert. Yep, 9, you can continue on to the W-bar-W.
So those were smoke jumpers who were expressly told not to jump onto a fire, which was very small at the time, but then grew out of control and eventually burned through the town of Pateros. Hundreds of homes were just gone. The state ended up making changes and enacting new laws to make their response to wildfires better. But it was only after those types of mistakes were made public. Another example was when I investigated the WSU Bear Center. A yearling cub had died under terrible conditions. The center thought it was in hibernation. It wasn't, and that bear ended up starving nearly to death. It took the center too long to even notice, and they had to euthanize the cub. Again, because of public disclosure laws, the university had to give me those documents, which explained exactly what happened. And it wasn't something that the university necessarily wanted anyone to know, but after it happened, that Bear Center made important safety changes to make sure something like that would never happen again. We use public disclosure laws in some form almost every day. Sometimes it's to show progress, like when I asked the Spokane mayor about diversity in city leadership positions. It's been slow progress, but he gave me the figures that show how the city is making strides to bring more women and more minorities into the ranks. We showed how the city first responded when there were some sexual harassment allegations. Those were coming against the former police chief, Frank Straub. Turns out that the city just moved the woman who claimed she was being harassed by the former chief. They moved her into a different department. And the entire handling of that entire investigation was something that we did report on regularly. Again, all thanks to public records. It's something that I've relied on at the federal level as well. We were looking into donations from big pharmaceutical companies. Those were coming to our Washington representatives. So one thing that you guys may remember was the controversy after the price of the EpiPen just skyrocketed. People wanted to know how much our lawmakers were taking from drug makers at the same time that they were claiming that they were trying to lower drug costs. So all of that information is out there because the law requires it. That's the way it's supposed to work. And now these state lawmakers say that they should be exempt from that law. Those are just a few examples of how we have used sunshine laws in general to shine some light on what our area leaders and lawmakers have been doing, because they work for you and you should know what they're doing.
That's right. So they have voted this. Everybody said yes.
Yeah.
Now what happens?
Well, they fast-tracked it, and it was all kind of in response to a lawsuit. A judge over there on the west side said, yeah, you guys still have to follow these public disclosure laws. So they fast-tracked this bill and got it passed, and now it's veto-proof on the governor's desk. But this is not going to be the end of it. There will still continue to be litigation. Lots of journalists have said, wait a minute, this is not how it's supposed to work. So we haven't heard the end of it, and I'm sure that there will be more to come.
You would think that lawmakers would at least care about the optics of how this looks to the public.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to know what we're saying in emails or texts. It just seems like they'd be more concerned about that.
You would think, and they're saying, hey, we'll give some information. They just want to have a little bit more control over what they're able to disclose and what they're not. And so again, the optics don't look good, but we haven't heard the end of it.
And again, we're not talking about private text messages, and we're talking about work-related, in the scope of business.
So your work email, your work phone. Yeah.
All right, Whitney, thank you very much. We'll keep you posted on this.
Stay tuned.